Hello everyone, my name is Adam Miller and I'm from Aichi Shukutoku University in Nagoya City, Japan. And today I'll be briefly introducing my paper, which is titled Lessons Learned During the COVID-19 Pandemic, Preparing Tertiary Education in Japan for 4IR. So today we don't have much time, so I'm going to quickly go through the literature review and the methodology. So for the literature review, it's basically divided into two sections. First up, there are texts that were written before the pandemic, and then the second half of the texts that are referenced in the paper were written during the pandemic. So there are many texts that I will be drawing from, but one of the central figures, who I'm sure many of you are familiar with, is Klaus Schwab, and his book, The Fourth Industrial Revolution from 2016, is obviously very important to this paper, as is the book that he co-authored with Thierry Mallarette in 2020 called COVID-19, The Great Reset, which specifically looks at how the pandemic forced us as a society, a global community, to embrace 4IR, or the Fourth Industrial Revolution, which is a theme that I will also explore in this paper. So the methodology, again, I'll make it very brief, I do apologise. So the study is based on lots of different papers, but the other side of this study is from a very small scale questionnaire that I did with 8 higher education institute teachers based here in Japan. So the purpose of this study, first up, I wanted to see how the higher education institutes in Japan were affected by the COVID-19 pandemic, how such a sudden shift was handled nationwide, but specifically in Nagoya City, where I'm based. And I also was curious to find out if any of the people that I interviewed thought that there was a future for this technology, even after it is not mandatory or has to be used to supplement face-to-face classes, if there are any benefits we can reap using it in the future. What is interesting is when I interviewed these teachers, there was an exactly 50-50 split of the new curriculum style they were forced to adopt. So half said that they were mostly doing on-demand classes, and the other was real-time. But no matter the approach, all of the teachers stated that they were asked to move online. The face-to-face classes were stopped for a while during the states of emergency that were announced in Japan. Next up, I wanted to know how long the teachers had to prepare for this sudden shift, and most of the interviewees said that they had around 2 weeks. The shortest was 4 to 6 days. I also asked how much participation the teachers had in the decision-making process, and the vast majority had no influence whatsoever. Only one teacher, they had an active role in deciding how they're going to approach lessons during the pandemic. But even though the time was short and the involvement was minimal, most of the teachers were either ambivalent towards this curriculum change or positive towards it. So I tried to correlate some of these different variables. As you can see, there doesn't seem to be a very strong connection between the involvement teachers had in the decision-making process and their overall opinion of the curriculum. Although it is worth noting, the one teacher that did have a strong involvement was also favourable of the curriculum. It seems the biggest connection here is the shorter a teacher has in time to prepare for this sudden change, the lower their opinion was on said curriculum. Moving on to the results, these are some of the potential benefits that the teachers highlighted in the questionnaire, and all of these are also backed up by existing literature in the full paper. So the first one, which was most prominent, I would argue, is that teachers said that they were forced to become more comfortable and familiar with this technology. Another big benefit that one of the teachers pointed out was that although we couldn't see our students face to face, channels of communication were opened up and students could contact us at any time, and we could respond or alter curriculums or assignments very, very easily. Of course, the flip side of this is that the workload for teachers increased, and it wasn't merely the case that you turn up for work in the morning and you go home and you finish your work. The work would follow you home because this technology made you available all the time. So another teacher did see this as a downside, not a benefit. And the last benefit that is here is that absenteeism could be addressed maybe a bit more actively. So lessons could be recorded and uploaded, materials could be made available online, or video-based learning, or VBL, could be used to substitute any lessons that the students may have missed. So if a student is ill or has to miss class for whatever reason, it doesn't automatically mean that they will then fall behind in their studies. Moving on to potential drawbacks of this technology, I think one of the biggest ones that many of the teachers addressed was that there was a lack of community and interaction, not only between the teacher and the students, but also amongst the students as well. And moving on from that, as students had the ability to turn off their cameras, for example, for real-time lessons, it's difficult for teachers to monitor how much interaction and class participation is actually occurring. Also, there were very serious concerns about the mental health of both the teachers and the students, which is seen in not only the literature, but also one of the teachers pointed out that an increased sedentary time can lead to very negative mental health effects. And the last point, as was mentioned in the previous slide as a benefit, here one of the teachers pointed out that there is an increased workload and they never seem to be off the clock, as it were. They are always available, which can make work very stressful. So, in conclusion, the technology that has been explored today that was used for online learning was absolutely essential to help lessons continue, at least here in Japan, during the pandemic. So the transition, of course, was not completely seamless, but this technology helped it be as smooth as possible, moving from face-to-face to some sort of online classes. And as Schwab points out in his 2016 book, The Fourth Industrial Revolution, our dependence on this technology is only going to increase in the future. And the pandemic gave us the opportunity to become more familiar and more comfortable using it. Last point, there is obviously a very fine balance to be made here between utilizing this technology and using it to its full potential, whilst also not increasing the workload or increasing the stress for both teachers and students. So further studies can be made to look at how we can utilize this technology. But for today, that's all I have time to go into. I hope you have a chance to check out my full paper, but I really do appreciate your time today. Here are my references, and you can also find the raw data from the questionnaires by following this link. But I do appreciate your time, and I look forward to hearing any questions you may have. Thank you again.